Hi, this is Jim Janossy, and this is chapter 22 of The Story of Art by Ernst Gombrich. In this chapter, we'll be taking a look at France, Germany, and Austria, that is Northern Europe, in the Baroque era. Let's take a look at the Palace of Versailles. This was a monumental undertaking by Louis XIV of France. It's a very large structure, and in designing this building, the architects took a monumentally long building, 123 windows, on every one of these stories, and they broke up the mass of the structure with protruding parts such as this and some other protruding parts here, but the grandeur of Versailles was mainly from these huge ponds and the gardens and the walkways. Very large site for this, and a very ostentatious palace that had hundreds if not thousands of rooms. The idea of monumental buildings in other parts of Europe also caught on. No one could afford a building as large as Louis XIV, however. This is a mansion in Vienna, which has some of the same kinds of elements of structure as Versailles, in that this part of the building sticks out, and we have the hint of little towers here also sticking out, and this part of the building being recessed. And here we have the interior of another royal residence of that era. And you see the grandeur here of these Corinthian columns and all this decoration and the decoration of these arches. The idea here in the Baroque was very theatrical, to overwhelm with the appearance and with the lavish decorations. In churches we see this, and here in secular buildings we see this as well. Melk Monastery is actually one of the most developed and most refined Baroque structures. It was built in the early 1700s, and one of the videos that I've provided at the website for GPH 205 actually takes you on a tour of this. What you see here of this structure built up on the hill, types of towers that we've seen in other churches, squarish here, going to round at the top. In this case, decoration takes the form of these bands of different colors of stone, as well as the kind of ornamentation that you see on the tops of these buildings and the statues here. But the interior of Melk Monastery is where we really see the theatrical nature of decoration in the Baroque. This is the interior of the church, and we can see here that just about every square inch of the interior surface is covered with something, much of it with a gold leaf or gold application. And here we see pilasters in the form of Corinthian columns. We see a lot of very ornate decoration here. We see these frescoes and paintings, and in the dome area we see more of this gold lavished on the fixtures, and we see statues here. Very much an experience that was intended to overwhelm. As Gombrich has said, in the Middle Ages the idea was that church decoration would be simple, and it would be telling the doctrine of the church to people who couldn't read. He makes rather an interesting comment that in the Baroque, the interior decoration of churches became so fancy it was as if the emotional experience was intended to transcend reality, and it was intended to convert people who had read too much and maybe thought by way of that reading that they really didn't need what the church had to offer. But in its splendor in the church and in the services conducted in it was intended to overwhelm a little bit of heaven here on earth. Towards the end of the Baroque era, at least in France, the taste for very theatrical types of decoration and art began to wane, and the Rococo period, and Antoine Watteau, an artist very prominent in that period, painted this way in a way that some people have characterized as rather dainty. The scenes always seem to be of outings in very nice surroundings with very restful, aristocratic people, well dressed, and everything looks dainty and, well, happy, quite as it should be. Some people have remarked that this was almost a melancholy entry into the end of the 1700s, when, of course, French society changed radically with the revolution that grew out of some of the concepts of the Age of Reason and the Enlightenment. Watteau was a rather sick man, and some people think that perhaps that colored the type of paintings he made. There's a wistfulness here, almost as if an age is disappearing.